Good morning, everybody. This is Kirsten from Tamagotchi Ocean, and I wanted to do a video today about something that I've been thinking about a lot because as much as I love Tamagotchi, there's some disturbing things about it, and I will always be a Tamagotchi collector, so this is not a video to discourage people from collecting Tamagotchis or make people feel bad about playing with them or anything. This video is more about I don't know, I just feel like talking about it, I guess, and I honestly find this topic to be fascinating. And I tried looking it up on YouTube to see if anybody else had covered this subject, and from what I could see, there's no videos about it. So I figured I would do a video talking about this and why it's important. But also, I hope you just get some entertainment value out of the video because I do, as dark as these things can be, I think we should enjoy ourselves and always try to have fun in life and not try to get down on life just because this stuff is everywhere. So, what I find particularly interesting is that there are actually a handful of occultists who are pretty prominent in the Tamagotchi community. I'm not saying they're famous or anything, but they have quite a lot of followers, and I follow a few of them. And they themselves have never once mentioned any of this, even though anybody with basic knowledge of the occult should be able to see this very easily when they're playing with Tamagotchis. Anybody who is a collector of the vintage Tamagotchis all the way to the new ones who understands occult symbolism should have seen this long ago, and I would think somebody would have made a video about it, but they haven't. I just find that really interesting and strange. But since I'm the only one talking about it, I guess here we go. So this is one of the very first advertisements for Tamagotchi, and as you can see in the picture, if you're not familiar with all the versions of Tamagotchi, this is the P1 Tamagotchi that was originally released in Japan in 1996. And I'm not an expert on Tamagotchi lore or anything. I am a fan of Tamagotchi, so if I get some things wrong, please correct me, but I'm also not an expert on the occult either. I'm just going to give you the bare bones knowledge that I do happen to have about this. I have been studying the occult for many years now, and it's not something that I adhere to as a spiritual path or a religion or anything. But I can explain to you certain symbolism because I've looked into it. But again, I'm not an expert. I do have a degree in anthropology, so I've studied a lot of cultures and religions and spiritualities, so I see patterns. That is basically the extent of my education, so take what I say with a grain of salt. As you can see here, the Tamagotchi at the top, and there are 6 Tamagotchis featured here. I don't know if this was every single shell of the very first wave. I'm guessing it is, but I could be wrong. But as you can see, the one at the top in the middle, top row, is a black and white Tamagotchi, and that was the original design that was pitched by the creator of Tamagotchi. I forget her name, she's a Japanese woman, but she worked for Bandai, from what I understand, and she pitched them this idea of a virtual pet that you take care of inside of an egg. And, to the average person, this will seem cute, a little strange, but cute. And the backstory of Tamagotchi is that they're aliens from another planet that crash landed, and a scientist helped them by putting them into a shell where they could survive or something like that, right? And so you have the egg design, And then you also have various colors of the design. And you also have 3 buttons under the screen, and each screen has a background. And we'll get into the background in a few minutes, but I just want to talk about how this was the very first Tamagotchi ever released. So that's an important piece of info. It's not like this Tamagotchi came out after several different waves of shells. This was the first one. Black and white shell, or a white shell with black buttons rather. And the background, which we'll zoom in on in a minute or so, is a chessboard or a checkerboard with, I guess you could say, red and blue or pink and blue. I'm not really sure what the shade of color of it is, but it appears to me to be like pinkish reddish and blue tiles in the background, which is kind of weird if you think about it. What does that remind you of? So let's take a look at this image here. This is the cosmic egg. And as you can see, it's encircled by a serpent. And this represents eternity or reincarnation. Basically the cycle of life and death. The serpent eating itself. And as you can see, the first Tamagotchi is pictured here in a white egg with a serpent as the character on the screen. They could have chosen any of the other characters to put on that particular screen, but they chose that one for some reason. And they also chose to put 3 buttons under the screen. And you might be saying, well, they did it a certain way. There was competition for the market. And it's like, well, no, this is the first virtual pet. They could have put 6 buttons. They could have put 7 buttons. They could have put 5 buttons. They could have put 2 buttons. But for some reason, the format they chose was 3 buttons. And 3 is a number of creation in Hermetic numerology. And you'll see as I go throughout this whole video how this is all related to Hermeticism, because we're at the point in the video where you might be thinking, well, Kirsten, you're kind of reaching. You're kind of just jumping to conclusions. This is all dumb. It doesn't seem related to me, but we're going to get more into it. As you can see, there were 3 shells, at least in this photo, that have a clock face on them. And I'll explain how that's related later. But it has to do with Saturn worship, which is what all of these occult spiritual paths lead back to, is Hermetic practice and Saturn worship. So as you can see here, this is the first package for the very first Tamagotchi. And it shows occult colors. Blue, red, and yellow are very prominent colors in the occult. And many cartoon characters, many different logos of companies, and even flags of countries have all of these colors. I'm not saying every single flag of every country has these colors, but many have red and blue, many, and white. So, moving on to the American, because that was the Japanese, even the American, some of the first waves of the Tamagotchi, and as you can see, they put the serpent right there. They could have put any other character. They could have put Mamechi, they could have put anybody there, but they put this character instead. And they did put Coochie Patchy here on this screen, but as you can see, it's inside of the cosmic egg. It's an egg within an egg within an egg, which is interesting to me. And then, of course, it has the story of Tamagotchi and how these are aliens. And that's another thing about the occult, is many people have theories about how aliens are actually demons and demons are fallen angels. So it all leads back to the same thing. We can see here, this is the re-release of the chibi, I think. This photo, it might be depicting that, I'm not sure, but yeah, this appears to be the original 6 shells. Another thing I wanted to mention was how the color orange is an occult color in Gematria. It reduces down to 33, the color orange, which is a master number in Hermeticism and Freemasonry, which, if you don't know what Freemasonry is, it is a Hermetic practice. And you'll see here that even up to the most modern Tamagotchis, they're utilizing this color scheme, the black and white. Now, what is occult about black and white, you might be wondering. Maybe you've seen a yin-yang symbol somewhere. And here's I believe this is the US version of the Tamagotchi meets, even had the black and white. And then also the blue, red, or pinkish. It's like a magenta color. And gold. These are all colors of the occult right here. And then of course we have all the stars, which I'll be explaining that as well. So here we go. So in Freemasonry, we have 3 pillars. We have 1 pillar on top is the sun, 1 pillar on top is the moon. And then the other pillar is a star with an all-seeing eye. Or you could say it's a second sun. Sometimes these images contain slightly different information, slightly different interpretations. But, so we have 3 pillars here, and then we have the black and white chessboard squares, and we have the 4 cardinal directions. And, basically, what this image is depicting is that there are 2 main paths in life. There's the left-hand path and the right-hand path. And then there's the middle path. And the right-hand path, or the left-hand path, has to do with internal magic or individualistic magic. And how you can create with your own will. The right-hand path has to do with God and how you can pray to God. You know, basically he is an external source of power, whereas this is an internal source of power. And so we know about this is pretty common knowledge in most magical circles, in neo-paganism, in Hermeticism, and in different religions. We already know about the left hand and the right hand path, but very few people talk about the middle path, which is basically a combination of these 2 types of energies, and that is what Freemasonry and other occult traditions believe will basically help you ascend, is the middle path. So, and as you can see here, we have the Eye of Providence above the middle pillar, and that represents the architect of this realm, which they consider to be God. Now, what does the checkerboard actually mean? Okay, so we have the black and white, which is featured in the Tamagotchi. As you can see, it's featured in many, many versions of Tamagotchi. It's featured in the Asian versions and the American versions. And you can see, what does this represent? Well, this represents good and evil, and basically how we have these 2 things in this realm, and they're kind of interconnected, and you can't have one without the other, basically. So if you look at a Tamagotchi, it has a checkerboard. Basically, the black and white squares represent energies. Black represents the divine feminine energy, and white represents the masculine energy, the divine masculine energy. And also, in these alchemical ideologies, red or magenta and blue, or this teal here, They're kind of, slightly different hues of red and blue, but they represent gender alchemy. So traditionally, blue was actually considered the feminine color, the divine feminine color, and red was considered the divine masculine color. And the reason that historians give for this could be incorrect. It could be that historians are wrong. But the reason that historians give for this is that the reason blue actually represents femininity is because the female body runs colder. Our internal temperature is colder than men's. So ancient people used to believe that for this reason, women's genitalia had to be on the inside of their body to keep warm, because our bodies are colder. Men's bodies are warmer, and also red represents the god Mars, the god of war, which is a divine masculine archetype. So red represents masculinity and how the male body is warmer. In modern times, this has been inverted. Blue is seen to represent masculinity, and red or pink is seen to represent femininity. Which version of this came first, I don't know. It could be that pink and red have always been associated with femininity, and maybe occult ideology has inverted that. I don't know. But then we can see in this Masonic symbol that when you combine these two energies, you get a third energy, which is an androgynous energy. That's basically what the third pillar represents in occultism, is the combining of esoteric and exoteric knowledge, or the combining of masculinity and femininity, which masculinity is in sort of an externalized energy, and then femininity is an internalized energy, right? So they've switched the sun and the moon, if you notice, because the left-hand path is an internal magic. It's an individualistic magic that comes from within you. But they've put the sun on top for some reason. Why did they do that? Well, personally, I don't know. I'm not an expert on the occult, but same thing with the feminine. The feminine energy is an internalized energy, and yet the moon, which is the feminine energy, is placed upon the pillar that represents external sources. So what I believe they're doing here, and I could be wrong, is they're switching them to represent how when you combine the two of each thing, you get the third path, the middle path. Okay? So, which you could interpret that this is the black sun, God's eye, the all-seeing eye watching upon you, the architect of the realm. And then we also have the compass and the square, which are also symbols of Freemasonry. So, scrolling down, you might be thinking, well, this is absolutely ridiculous, Kirsten. Why do you really think that all of this is actually related? Like, this is just a coincidence. The first Tamagotchi just happens to be black and white. Not everything that's black and white has to do with Freemasonry or has to do with the occult or Hermeticism or Saturn worship. Like, why would you just assume that? You might be saying. So, let's look at this symbol for a second. This is the death screen on the early 2000s connections, which basically, if you're not familiar with Tamagotchis, it's basically a symbol that pops up when your Tamagotchi character passes away. So this is basically an egg with wings. And to most people, this might just be an innocent symbol. It just means like, oh, the Tamagotchi died, and that's why it has the angel wings. It went to heaven, and now you can just restart the Tamagotchi and it will hatch out of this new egg, right? And, you can, how And then you might be asking, well, how is that related to the Ouroboros, or however you pronounce it? How is that even related? Just because it's an egg doesn't mean it's the same thing. Well, let me demonstrate to you how it is exactly the same thing. So, how often do you see this egg with wings symbol in society? You don't really see that a whole lot. And if you do, it's not really explained to you what it is, right? This is the serpent egg, and this is a symbol of Freemasonry, okay? And yet it's being put in a Tamagotchi on a live screen. So, for those of you who don't know what this is, it's called the winged neph, which, let's go to Wikipedia and read about it. So, Neph, also known as Kmeth, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, is a god and motif of divinity in ancient Egyptian religious art, so Hermeticism, variously represented as a winged egg, a globe surrounded by one or more serpents, right? That's the egg with the serpent I just showed you, or a moon in the form of the serpent called Kematef. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly either. Some theosophical, by the way, theosophists are Satanists, sources tried to syncretize this motif with the deity Khnum, along with Agathos Daimon and Serapis and Pluto, under the Greek theonym Chnufis. I don't know if I'm saying that right either. This figure adopts a serpent-bodied, lion-headed, leontoidic, I don't know if I'm saying that right either, visage, being particularly common in magical artifacts in late antiquity. It is by proxy frequently associated with the Gnostic demiurge. So that's interesting that, let's go back to the slideshow. Here we have the demiurge depicted on the first Tamagotchi, the black and white shell, and the black and white representing the Masonic floor, and then we have a winged neph as an alive screen. So it's interesting that they chose to depict this on the screen after your Tamagotchi passes, basically representing that it will be reborn when you press the A and C button together at the same time. Okay, so I hope you're seeing now how all of this is connected to Freemasonry, which leads back to Hermeticism, ancient Egyptian alchemy. And this is from the official journal of, I can't even read that, it's so blurry, of Ancient and Primitive Rite of Masonry. They admit what they are, okay? They know they are Hermeticists. They say what they are. But they hide certain information from you. Okay, so so there's more than just the egg and wings, right? There's the Eye of Providence in the pyramid, and there's also what's called a, let's go back and look at what that is. Let's see. It was in here. I was just looking it up. Okay. Rub el Hizb. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. This is an Islamic or Arabic symbol in the shape of an octagram, which is basically two cubes, the black and white cube put together. And then there's the Eye of Providence in the middle. Okay. So, this is featured in Islam, and in many other Abrahamic religions we have similar symbolism of, let's go back, similar shapes, right? So in the middle of the Star of David is a cube. If you look at it correctly, it is a cube. It's basically the symbols of as above, so below put together. And that creates a dark cube in the middle, which is Saturn worship. Now, you might be asking, what does Saturn even have to do with cubes? That's kind of random. Doesn't make any sense to me. Saturn cube. Let's go into images. As you can see, there is a cube on top of the actual planet Saturn. And it's in all religions, essentially. So let's see if I can scoot this over. So as you can see, it's in the middle of the Star of David. It's on the planet Saturn. We have a giant cube in Mecca. And the Christian cross folds into a cube. And then we have in the Greek symbol of Saturn is the cross, right? And then we also have some Orthodox, in some forms of Orthodox Judaism, we have the cube as well on the head. Okay, so it all leads back to the same thing, which is this eye of providence. Hold on, let me go back and click on that image again. Okay. We have this eye of providence inside of, I can't scoot it back, inside of here, right? Inside of the sun moon symbol. So, zooming out, it's all related. Here you even have a black cube of Saturn keychain. This isn't just like a connection that I just came up with. Like, the people who worship Saturn use these symbols. There's Saturn worshipers today still who use these symbols, okay? And basically the point I'm getting at with all of this is that all of these spiritual paths lead back to the same thing, which is Saturn worship, or what the Freemasonic chessboard is depicting here, which is duality. Basically, we live in a realm of good and evil, and in order to ascend, you must be both. You must be darkness and light, you must be good and evil, you must be masculine and feminine. And I disagree with that. I don't think you should be a combination of these things. I don't think good. Basically, what I'm saying is I don't believe that goodness requires evil to exist. So that's what these people believe, though. Okay, it's called dualism, and they promote what's called non-dualism, which is the combination of these things to remedy what's being depicted here. Basically, you can't ascend, you can't get out of here unless you obtain the knowledge required to become this 2 into 1 being, essentially. And there's a lot of things in our culture right now that are promoting this in many different ways, but I won't get into it because I know that will piss some people off. And I know this video will probably piss off everybody, actually. So here we have another example of it. The pink and the blue, and then the chessboard inside, representing alchemy. Now, if we go down here, this is another symbol that's basically what Freemasonry depicts. So Freemasonry depicts the compass and, those two tools put together, they make a basically as above, so below symbol. And that's also another symbol of Saturn because we have 2 X's combined. So two X's is also a symbol of Saturn. And I'll show you proof of that. Where is it? Sometimes it's hard to find this particular symbol. It's kind of an obscure symbol. Because it thinks I'm looking for astrology, but I'm not. Oh, I know what it is. Sigil of Saturn, that's what it's called. So the sigil of Saturn depicts that same thing. 2 X's. So that's why X is a symbol of Saturn. Here we have another one. And then as you can see here, another 2 X's. So it's all related. Every aspect of this symbol represents Saturn. The 2 X's right there, the cube inside of it, and the as above, so below, which is represented by the chessboard. Because what it's saying is what's going on down here is also what's going on up here. In order to get up here, you have to figure out what's going on down here. This is the microcosm of the macrocosm. So, we'll get a little bit more into it, but here we have this symbol kind of reworked in a different way. And then we see how that's related to femininity and masculinity and sacred actuality. I won't say the actual word because I don't want this video to be pulled from YouTube, and I've censored the image so that you can't see any of the lewd happenings, but this is sacred actuality being depicted in this Freemasonic symbol, which is a symbol of Saturn. So, this isn't just something I made up, okay? This is all related. It's all related. The square and compass makes the symbol of Saturn. Now, when you put it all together and really think about it, what does the clock face represent in the end? Well, Saturn is the god of time. It all makes sense now, doesn't it? Right? And then we have 6 here. 6 is also a symbol in the occult that I won't get into because it'll offend some people. But 3 is a number of creation. So, here you have it. The black and the white egg with a serpent inside of it. The 3 black buttons, 3 is a hermetic, in hermetic numerology is a number of creation. And in Hermeticism, this represents the cycle of reincarnation. And it's even in the American versions, or the English versions. It's even in the new versions. And you can see symbolism of the star here, which also represents the all-seeing eye here. And you might be saying, well, it's just stars. It's just stars. No, it's everything in combination, okay? If it was just one thing, it wouldn't really, register much with me, but it's a lot of things, okay? A lot of things. So, do I think Tamagotchis are evil? No, I don't. I'm never going to stop playing with them. I think they're fun and cool. Do I think that the creators of Tamagotchi, Bandai, and this person who came up with the idea, they're probably fully aware of what they're doing. And this is in a lot of toys and a lot of toy companies. It's not just Bandai. So I'm not singling out Bandai or anything. It's just that this is a channel about Tamagotchis. So, of course, I'm going to talk about Bandai and I'm going to talk about the Tamagotchi. So, yeah, this is what Tamagotchi represents. And um, I'm not saying this to depress anybody or make anybody mad or offend anybody. It's just a topic I like to think about, and I like to analyze symbolism. And I I honestly think it's interesting and it's mysterious, and I enjoy uncovering mysteries, and um, I care about the truth of what's going on in this realm. Okay? So once you see all of these symbols for what they are, you can put the bigger picture together, which is that the Tamagotchi represents reincarnation and how we are basically reborn into this realm over and over and over again, which is exactly what the gameplay of the Tamagotchi entails. Whether it's the old ones or the new ones, the old ones you just restarted it, but in the new ones you have generation after generation after generation, and you even have the mixing of characters, okay? So that things become a little muddied, and that is a concept in the occult, is the mixing of energies, okay? To become enlightened or to ascend. And in Islam, let me see if I can find that image again. Yeah. In Islam, Saturn is Satan. Okay? So, and Saturn is an androgynous god. That's actually not common knowledge. Most people don't know that, but I've read texts written by Saturn worshippers, so I know some of this stuff. Is that, another thing is the symbolism of water, being reborn in water. That's a big part of the occult, and that is in Christianity. That's what baptism is. People don't realize that Freemasons are actually Christians. Their Freemasonic Bible is just a regular Bible with a Freemason symbol on it, and it was written by a Freemason. So the King James Bible, King James was a 33rd degree Freemason, and essentially the religion of Christianity is all of this occult knowledge, okay? So, and same thing with Islam and Judaism. You see it everywhere. It's in Judaism, it's in Islam. The cubes, whether it's depicted as a cube or triangles, it's the same thing. It all leads back to a square inside of a shape that represents Saturn, black and white cubes. So another thing I wanted to mention about the black and white cube thing is the chessboard doesn't just represent good and evil. It actually represents heaven and hell. So in the Bible, heaven and hell are cubes. It even gives the measurements of these cubes in the Bible. And it gives the measurements of the New Jerusalem, which is also a cube. It's a gold cube, by the way. So we have the white cube, the black cube, and a gold cube. These are all occult colors. So this is why I'm saying, like, this is all related. It all represents the same thing. So, if anybody was offended by this, I apologize. That wasn't the purpose of the video. It's just I just find these topics to be really interesting. And I'm also just shocked that there's occultists in our community who don't talk about it at all. I find that to be really, really weird. But maybe they themselves just didn't notice, or maybe they didn't want to be scrutinized by people. Like, I'm pretty sure I will get people who are angry that I made this video, so I can see why somebody else wouldn't want to talk about it, you know? Especially if they have a large following, they might their channel might get a strike if they talk about it, because people might report them because they're offended. I'm not saying they're bad people just because they haven't talked about this, but I do find it weird that nobody's talked about it, and I'm the only person talking about it. So, yeah. You are left to conclude whatever you want. You can completely disagree with me. I don't mind. But to me, it's all connected and it all makes total sense. So, this is what I think and what I know. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep collecting. I'm not going to stop collecting just because this is related to dark occult concepts. I think Tamagotchis are fun, and, most stuff in mainstream media has this symbolism, and it's like, well, if you just completely stopped following every single thing that had this symbolism, you would basically have nothing to enjoy in this world. So I'm the kind of person who believes in enjoying yourself while you're here, and don't get depressed about it. Just recognize it for what it is, observe the reality, and, keep it at the back of your mind that this is what's basically being shoved in your face 24/7 by the elite. So have a great day. Bye.